After 9 months and over 600 email correspondences on questions spanning metaphysics, my experiences in the Marine Corps, my graduate work in rhetoric, and much more, I suddenly woke up to the realization that I had actually been undergoing a different kind of manipulative education that I did not even know was occurring. When it struck me, I knew this professor to whom I was asking these questions had a different formula for teaching. Eventually, I had no choice but to define myself as the slave who had been freed by an African master. Why Western education does not offer this kind of freedom in learning only tells the story of where humanity has arrived within a period of 2,400 years. During this span of time, humanity has been repeating the words civilized and civilization, which were concocted by the Greeks to define their purpose that was defined for everything else but civility. In effect, the Greeks maligned the word civilization when there was nothing civil about them. Let me briefly get into the history of the Greeks. Near the end of so-called prehistory, lost to inoculated amnesia via rhetorical illusions, falsified sciences, mythical gods, physical abuse, mental manipulation, fear-mongering, chemical toxins, financial slavery, miseducation, threats of death, etc., the Greeks, not so far removed from their cave-dwelling existence, devoid of plants and the sun, forced into incestual relationships and creating a survivalist manner of living that no longer had any rational, loving, logical, or intellectual justification any longer, being outdated nearly 3,000 years. In a word, archaic. This newly forming civilization, certainly not the first and certainly not stemming from Sumeria, was drawn toward their inhabitant center, southward, to the origins of humanity and the birthplace of civilization. A civilization that existed without outside influence or extortion, peacefully, in harmony for over 10,000 years. That civilization is Africa. The Greeks learned of the gods and the stars and healing medicine from the Kemetan pharaohs and the great Imhotep. Most importantly, they learned, deceptively, the sacred laws of math. This science, this mathematical form, which is divinely inspired and was ascertained via pure meditation practices, not the prevalent mispropagated forms, naturally endowed and bestowed from the original ancestors to the Africans, who used this technology to build and sustain their flourishing, peacefully progressive civilization for over 10,000 years, in harmony with themselves, Mother Earth, the Sirius star system, and the universe as a whole, was and still is the language of the gods. This original abstract language, the code that created the universe herself, could knowingly be dilutively derived or manipulated into more concrete, yet dynamically malleable forms of expression. By and large, we call these expressions of form today words. Yet, by and large, the overwhelming majority of persons in Western civilization, if not humanity as a whole, has no recollection, no clue as to what words really are. Nevertheless, these mathematical derivatives, which we call words, are the very same static, once stated then outdated, thus no longer true, combined entities, building themselves upon only that which is antiquated by their very nature, that we in the West, by and large, form our belief systems upon, and amazingly, this destructive ideology is what we call sane. Plato was the Greek that equated words with the truth. That is to say, he established a contagious belief system upon the notion that that which is created is equal to its creator, that symbols are equal to what they mathematically stem from and represent. Paradoxically, the espousal of this belief system is what allowed the advent of codified religious thought and the unconscious underlying moral caveat that holds humans in equal esteem with the ancestors and with God. This destruction of truth is what has birthed the destructive chaos that we see running rampant on our planet and in our minds today. Einstein was the Jew that equated light and matter with pure energy. That is to say, he established a viral theory upon the notion that that which is created is equal to its creator, that particles are equal to the waves which they travel upon and leach from. Paradoxically, the espousal of this theoretical construct is what allowed quantum maps of the universe, but with no purposeful construct of its origin, and thus no construct of the universe's revolutionary stages. This gap in knowledge, this relativity of time, this destruction of the whole truth, is what is birthed, destroying the atom and millions of human lives in its wake. Plato in the arts, Einstein in the sciences. Our foundations are flawed, faulty, false, and they have failed. Nietzsche, the German, recognized the origins of Plato's deception. The world would not listen. Tesla, the Croat, recognized the folly of Einstein's equations. The world would not hear him. Myself, Todd M. Skorich, of Germanic and Croatian lineage, now profess the truth that was hidden for centuries. The world cannot afford to ignore this message any longer. How an African master freed a white slave is a dialogue embedded with codes. With each exchange, not only are answers provided, a code is unraveled that when fully understood will undoubtedly revolutionize human thinking, leading away from the current destruction and towards our destined salvation. I was the white slave. As a war veteran and ordained minister with a graduate degree, I was not satisfied with the answers I was being force-fed by my Western institutions. I felt them built upon sand. I knew the rhetorical codes of the white man's morality via Plato and science via Einstein cause only chaos. I also knew, however, that there must be codes of morality and science that dispel the chaos. Codes that bring forth harmony and balance. Codes that create peace. Professor MOmOh is a Dogon high priest born in Sierra Leone. His great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was one of the original professors at the universities of Timbuktu in Mali, West Africa. The wisdom dispensed by Professor MOmOh is the same wisdom that built the pyramids that still stand today. The same wisdom that created and sustained the harmonically progressive civilization that existed for over 10,000 years. Professor MOmOh holds the codes that I had been searching for my entire life long. This story is the treasure that I have found, and I am passionate about sharing this treasure with the world. At times, this story is more enrapturing than a Dan Brown novel, but without the fiction and sensationalism. At other times, the story is more intellectually complex than a Richard Feynman lecture, but with a cosmology based upon cosmogony. At all times, however, this story is about codes, 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 and how the unraveling of these codes will change not only everything in a perceived reality, but will change the entire world as we know it. These are the codes that transform corruption, destruction, and chaos into peace, harmony, and equilibrium. Many are enthralled by such popular movies as Star Wars, The Da Vinci Code, and Slumdog Millionaire. However, the message to humanity continues to be muffled in confusion because the codes and the formulas by which these movies were produced were based upon the same formula which the Greeks believed they were establishing the foundations of so-called modern civilization. Our book and upcoming movie uses the codes and the formulas that Professor MOmOh projected into my mind that today make me a secure, stable, caring, and loving person. When 20 or 30 million people watch this movie, tens of millions will automatically, via the code, initiate their own feelings of being free, secure, stable, caring, and loving. Know that this is the kind of world we will be initiating and preparing for our children and our grandchildren. This movie is bound to change the world where there will be no Star Wars, no Da Vinci Code, and no Slumdogs. This is the movie to prepare us for the shift that is to occur in 2012. This is the story of star codes that stop wars. And as we describe the unraveling, the truth will soon be assailed as the greatest story ever told. Thank you.